everyone, and welcome to our special coverage on the China Central Asia Summit. I'm Zhongshi in Beijing. From the Silk Road to the Belt and Road Initiative, China has all along maintained various exchanges with Central Asia. Now, Chinese President Xi Jinping and the leaders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan are gathering in the northwest Chinese city of Xi'an. It is their first in-person summit since China established diplomatic ties with these countries 31 years ago. Xi Jinping is chairing and is scheduled to deliver an important speech. Over the years, China has continued to deepen cooperation with the 5 Central Asian countries, and now they're set to draw a new blueprint for future relations and cooperation. CGTN will bring you first-hand reports as well as in-depth analysis. Make sure you stay with us right here on our special coverage today. And now CGTN reporter Dong Xue joins me with an update from Xi'an. Dong Xue, good morning to you. What a special location that is about this summit right there in Xi'an, the starting point of the ancient Silk Road. Talk to us, Dong Xue, about the atmosphere there this morning and what we can expect from today's events.
Good morning. Good morning to you too, Zhongshi. I am now inside the venue for the inaugural China Central Asia Summit, where Chinese President Xi Jinping is about to host and meet with his 5 Central Asian counterparts from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. As you can see behind me, reporters from both international and domestic, and as well as official delegations are standing by here for the press briefing, which will be held right after the summit. Well, this is the first time the 6 heads of the state have gathered and meet in person. Well, it's also the first major diplomatic event held in China this year, according to China's foreign ministry, and an opportunity to draw up a new blueprint for ties with the sprawling bloc of Central Asian countries. And President Xi is about to deliver an important speech, and a series of agreements will be signed right after. Well, I think 3 items are expected to be on the agenda. First, China's Belt and Road Initiative, deepening economic and security links between China and the Central Asian regions. As we know, China and the 5 Central Asian countries had established diplomatic ties more than 3 decades ago, but the relationship has gone from strength to strength, especially under China's Belt and Road Initiative, which has already delivered a whole host of infrastructure projects, especially in underdeveloped region. And second, I think the regional issues that includes Afghanistan, which shares a border with the 3 Central Asian nations, and the Chinese Foreign Ministry had already earlier confirmed the views will be exchanged on regional stability and security. And third, to achieve the goal of building a community with a shared future, a concept proposed by President Xi to bring better prosperity and security to the world. In practice, this will mean greater cooperation between China and Central Asia, and the sharing of opportunities for mutual benefit. The concept was once again raised by President Xi yesterday when holding bilateral talks with all the visiting leaders. China has signed joint statements with Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, as well as a package of agreements in areas such as energy, transportation, agriculture, trade, and economy. Well, one example I want to bring up on the sidelines of this summit, yesterday, the state-owned Chinese energy giant Sinopec and Kazakhstan's K-Moon gas company had signed export agreements worth nearly $100 million. So obviously, you can see there's a lot of it going on lately in order to strengthen more economic cooperations among China and Central Asian countries. Zhongshi.
CGTN's Dong Xue with a live update for us there in Xi'an. Dong Xue, thank you. We look forward to more of your reporting today. And on Thursday night, the Chinese president held a welcoming gala and banquet in Xi'an to welcome his Central Asian counterparts and other guests attending the China Central Asia Summit. Our reporter Zhao Yunfei was at the venue, and here are the details.
Chinese President Xi Jinping hosted a very special welcoming event. Behind me, Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife, Professor Peng Liyuan, greeted the leaders and their wives from the 5 Central Asian nations. After the group photo, they walked towards the Ziyun pagoda behind them. If you look at the architecture is in the style from the Tang Dynasty, and that's why the welcoming ceremony is also conducted according to the customs from the ancient China. And after the welcoming ceremony, there is a big banquet. On the menu, there are pita soaked in lamb soup and roujiamo, or Chinese burger. And the taste really fits the taste of the people from Central Asian nations, and also both of the dishes are Xi'an cuisines and specialties. Following the dinner, there is a night performance. The performance is not very long, but it's a blend of culture, and artists from China and Central Asian countries celebrate the bond between the two areas that has been carried on for thousands of years. Xi'an has a significance while hosting the China Central Asian Summit. It is considered the starting point of the Asian Silk Road. Now, when we talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, it's inspired by the Asian Silk Road. It is expected to carry on the friendship and cooperation between China and Central Asian nations into the next level. Zhao Yunfei, CGTN, Xi'an, Shaanxi Province.
And to discuss today's events, joining me here in the studio are Teng Jianqun, a research fellow at the China Institute of International Studies, and Professor Liu Baocheng, Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. Gentlemen, fantastic to have both of you on our special coverage today. Obviously, China is attaching great importance to this event. It also shows how much China values its relations with those Central Asian countries. Professor Liu, let me start with you. We heard from our reporter today about the agenda items. We are awaiting a speech from the Chinese president this morning. What will you be looking out for today?
Well, further strengthening of economic ties is really the foundation, because the next is the security. Without the right type of economic prosperity through connectivity, through collaboration, and there is no way that we can really build a solid foundation for security. And to promote the economic prosperity, we need really to identify those areas that we can really cooperate based on a comparative advantage between China and those countries. And now, of course, the connectivity is the the crucial issue to build a better regional economic integration, under which we can really collaborate on energy, agriculture, and more of the industrialization program, and also the people-to-people exchange, so that trust level can be further elevated to really entrench the long-term and sustainable collaboration.
Mr. Teng, the core, the essence of the bilateral relations between China and those 5 Central Asian countries as a whole is economic in nature. Do we have that economic foundation right now where both sides are comfortable expanding cooperation in other areas? Professor Liu talked about security, obviously has also been a focus of their relationship. Do we have that economic foundation already after 31 years of diplomatic relations?
I can give you a figure. Last year, the total amount of trade between China and the 5 Central Asia countries reached 70.2 billion US dollars, more than 100 times up by 31 years ago. So this is a very important development for the two sides to have a good trade and economic cooperation, because there are a lot of complementarities between the two sides, between China and the 5 Central Asia countries. And I'm sure this time the summit will give new driving forces to the economic and trade development, because the two sides will reach new consensus and gave a new blueprint for the development of economic cooperation and security cooperation in this regard.
Professor Liu, you mentioned the level of trust between both sides. What do you make of the political will, the political trust between China and Central Asia?
Well, we draw a long-lasting legacy of rapport between China and these regions along the history, and then the trust level is further required in that the geopolitical situation has been shifting a great deal. And third is that these countries are really implementing more of their own domestic reform for economic construction and reducing the legacy of the mandatory planning, and so therefore we have more in common. So the ground for commonality is really the basis for trust building, and then to realize the comparative advantage on which we can really ride on, because these 5 countries are landlocked, and they do really want to connect not only with China but also with the rest of the world. And one very typical and outstanding example is that the freight trains that China has been working on it, and they are not only they ride on these trains, but they're also contributing on the cargo, on the protection, on the shifting of the transit, etc. So to connect the entire Eurasia continent. And then, as a matter of fact, that the Chinese development is also very much highly dependent on the energy supply. For example, much of the gas, through the pipelines, and also the oil with the pipelines, and then are really supporting the Chinese modernization program. And we do see that over the years there has been such an increase of energy supply to support the Jiangsu area, the Shanghai Delta area, and these are really something that's weaving the interdependence and also the mutual benefit that can really, both of these leaders can really see, and they are able to deliver to their own people of what they have promised when they staged on their political positions.
Mr. Chen, we've seen a lot of excellent rapport between the Chinese president and his counterparts from those 5 countries. Obviously, there is a high level of political trust. How have both sides been able to cement this political trust over the years?
Actually, if you look at the development of the relationship since China established diplomatic ties with the 5 countries in Central Asia, we can say there has been no political obstacle. We have a common interest, for example, to fight against the 3 evil forces, for the security of the region, and for the development of the region. President Xi Jinping also proposed several initiatives, not only Belt Road, but also security initiative, development initiative, and I think all these initiatives have been echoed positively by the countries from Central Asia. So I think the political foundation has been very solid, and I'm sure after this summit, the new development in all dimensions will give new driving forces for the political foundation among the countries in this region.
I think one must also be aware, despite of the increasing trust between China and with these countries, we have to be aware of some of the external shocks that might really have a ripple effect on this region. For example, many of the Europeans are also there to not only to court the collaboration over these countries, which China does not really reject, but also there are some sort of distrust over the Chinese influence over there. And the other is the Russia now is totally preoccupied with the Ukraine conflict, and these countries used to be the siblings of Russia, and during the CRS the program, and now the some of the extreme opinion leaders are also raising their voice. Is really China there to substitute the influence of Russia? I think it's very much of the virtuous competition rather than a zero-sum game. So China never really there to reject the influence and also the collaboration between Russia and all these regions.
That's a great point, Professor. Yeah. Just bear with me here. I'll be coming back to you later in our program. And CGTN reporter Meng Qingsheng is also in Xi'an. He joins me now. Qingsheng, we are, of course, awaiting that the speech from the Chinese president. Give us an overview of the events for these 2 days.
Well, President Xi Jinping had a tight and fruitful agenda on the very first day of the two-day summit. He held 4 rounds of bilateral talks with the leaders of Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. 1 day earlier, on Wednesday, he met with the president of Kazakhstan, who was the first to arrive. After each meeting, the heads of state signed important cooperative deals to strengthen their partnership. President Xi stressed the China-Central Asian relationship has traveled a 31-year journey. It enjoys deep historical roots, solid political foundations, substantive cooperation, and extensive public support. And China is ready to work with Central Asia to build a community with a shared future. Leaders of Central Asia reiterated their support for the One China principle, and they praised the China-proposed global development, security, and civilization initiatives. They expressed the willingness to enhance the depth, breadth, and scale of cooperation and expand their partnership in areas like the economy, trade, natural gas, connectivity, and cultural exchange. Central Asia also voiced their support for the Belt and Road Initiative, launched back in 2013. In the evening, President Xi and his wife Peng Liyuan held a welcome ceremony for Central Asian leaders and their wives in the Tang Paradise. It's a complex based on the site of the original relic of an imperial garden dating back to the Tang Dynasty. And then a welcome banquet was held in the same place, followed by an art performance. The gala marks the opening of the Year of Culture and Art of the Peoples of China and Central Asia, as well as the China-Central Asia Youth Arts Festival. And today, very soon, President Xi will chair the summit and deliver a keynote speech at a venue just 4 kilometers away from where I'm now standing right now. And he will expound on China's stance on how to construct the China-Central Asia community with a shared future. 都是
Meng Qingsheng live in Xi'an. We appreciate that report from you, Qingsheng. Thank you so much. And let's return to our discussion here in the studio. Mr. Teng, Professor Liu just now mentioned common interests, which is the foundation of expanded cooperation between the two sides. Just how compatible are the Chinese economy and the 5 Central Asian economies? How have they developed these common interests?
As we discussed just now, there are a lot of complementarities between the two sides. Actually, we are facing a complete new world at this moment. For example, the globalization of international politics and also the globalization of world economy. And we should have a new vision toward each other as we proposed. We should have a vision of a common, comprehensive, and sustainable concept for the community. So this is a very crucial moment for any country to think about the way we can go ahead. Otherwise, we can stop such a good momentum for the security and for the cooperation in this region. I'm sure during this summit, Chinese president will give a new idea for the future in-depth cooperation among the countries concerned. So this is a very important step for China and for the 5 Central Asian countries to think about their new blueprint of the future.
What about the Belt and Road Initiative? We know this year marks its 10th anniversary, and Central Asia has been not just a pioneer, but a staunch supporter of the China-proposed Belt and Road Initiative. How have they benefited from participating, Professor Liu?
Well, from the number of international populations in which the 5 states in Central Asia population in the share of our student population, we can see that there has been a dramatic increase over the years. And I've been teaching a class, with almost 30% of their participation rate, and actually this evening I'm going to give a 3-hour lecture on how China works out on the green economy transition. So China, on one hand, is a point of envy among those countries, because they do see that the grand achievements China has really achieved over the past more than 4 decades through domestic reform and opening. And actually they realize it, and also they admit they are falling behind in their domestic reform. And when they also wanted to further open the door, they found that China does offer the springboard and also pathway. And in the meantime, the connectivity program in terms of pipelines, in terms of the highways, now in terms of the the railways and express trains, that this is something that they are unable to afford in terms of the huge investment, upfront investment. And so therefore now they are taking a very much of the right, and then complementarity over the economic structure, because China is so much a great supplier of light industrial goods like textiles, the garments, and all the electronics over there is so popular, and the Chinese smartphones are there populating the entire region, etc. And then they are also rich in agricultural produce, in the minerals and the oil and gas, etc. So therefore, this is really the common room and a common will that we are able to work on a closer basis.
Mr. Teng, is that how you would characterize relations between the two sides? Obviously, China has been developing fast, and Professor Liu said China has been the envy of those Central Asian countries. By cooperating with China, what do they wish to learn from the China model, from the China experience?
You're right. I think President Xi just proposed Road and Belt Initiative. Actually, this idea is to share our development, our achievements with our neighboring countries, with any country in the world. This is actually a common target for the countries concerned, and I'm sure in the coming days or in the coming years, China will continue such a policy to share our achievements with any country who would like to cooperate with China, not only in politics, not only economy, but also in people-to-people exchanges, and in all dimensions we can go ahead to enhance such a momentum, because we are facing a very complicated international community. We should cooperate. We should go ahead with all our efforts to cooperate.
I think that one thing that is very important is respect, because China is now time and again has there to prove that we are not really expansionary force. We have no interest in their territorial integrity. And the other is that we do not really want to impose any political taglines on those economic corporations. And so they feel safe, and they feel that there is a very tangible one that we are doing. We're not really dealing with their democracy process, and now we build a road over there. So infrastructure overweighs superstructure in terms of collaboration. And then China is also there to offer the right level of sincerity, because we train not only their government officials and students, but very solidly we train the engineers and workers over there. And so they really receive those skills together with the equipment supplied over there, for example, to deal with steel making, to deal with petrochemical operation. And this is something that can really give a solid foundation for human capacity building in order to sustain the growth momentum of those countries.
All right, Professor Liu, Mr. Teng, thank you so much. You're watching our special coverage on the China Central Asia Summit, and right at this moment, presidents from those 5 Central Asian countries are arriving at the venue for a meeting with the Chinese president. We will bring you more details when they become available. And for more on China Central Asia ties, CGTN spoke to some Kazakhstan residents to get their views. Take a look.
I like China, particularly our Chinese partners, and their approach to business. First of all, they never lose opportunities. They always make 100% use of their opportunities. I also love their accuracy in terms of business. I think we have a lot to learn from the Chinese people in general. So we are working with Chinese So many views coincide, which also makes work easier.
China was one of the countries that care for itself very much. This is a country in general that I think many countries should follow their example. I know that our country is introducing a visa-free regime with China. I think this would be good because the Chinese will have the opportunities to create jobs in Kazakhstan. As well, citizens of Kazakhstan will also have opportunities to travel and study in China, which is very popular here.
I believe that China is a huge market, and the agricultural industry is developing very well in Kazakhstan. So everything that Kazakh farmers produce can absolutely be exported, and only China can consume everything that our farmers grow, not only in agriculture but also other industries such as engineering and so on. Therefore, China is, of course, a huge market for us and can become a driver for the development of all sectors of the Kazakh economy.
And just a quick update before we go. All 5 presidents from Central Asia have arrived at the venue for a meeting with the Chinese president. We will bring you more details when they become available. You're watching our special coverage of the China-Central Asia Summit. That is all we have on this broadcast. Stay with CGTN for more coverage coming your way. there, everyone. Welcome to The World Today. I'm Zhongshi, live in Beijing. Today is the second and final day of the China Central Asia Summit in northwest China's Xi'an. Chinese President Xi Jinping is holding a roundtable meeting with the leaders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. The leaders of the 5 Central Asian countries were welcomed by President Xi at the venue. Xi is set to deliver an important speech. Earlier, Xi held bilateral meetings with all leaders on the sidelines, in which statements and documents on cooperation were signed. And for more on the summit, let's check in with my colleague Wang Guan at the media center of the summit in Xi'an. Guan, good morning to you. We know that all 5 Central Asian presidents have arrived at the venue ready for their meeting with the Chinese president. Give us an overview, Guan, of today's events.
Zhongshi, great to hear from you. What we're seeing right now is China Central Asia engagement in full swing and arguably at its finest. The President of China, President Xi Jinping, is welcoming the leaders of the 5 Central Asian countries as we speak into the conference hall. After the handshake, the meet and greet, the China Central Asia Summit will officially get underway, whereby the President of China, of course, will be moderating the session. President Xi Jinping will be giving a keynote speech, and that's going to be a very, very important policy speech, whereby President Xi will be outlining his vision for China Central Asia engagement, not just for the next few months or next year, but really for the medium and long term, their eternal strategic friendship and relations going forward. And after that, there will be a signing ceremony, as we have just learned. Deals on dozens of areas are expected to be signed, covering sectors including energy, infrastructure, boosting momentum for the Belt and Road Initiative, educational and cultural and people-to-people exchanges, so on and so forth. There will also be a press availability whereby the leaders of the 6 countries will be stating and restating their positions and policies. It's going to be a great event. That is an event that has been much anticipated over the years. I mean, you can never understate the importance of this relationship, China and Central Asia, which share a very long border of 3,200 kilometers. When you think about it, there's so many components to this relationship. There's a security component to it. China and Central Asian countries have a lot of shared security aspirations. There, of course, is this trade and economic component to it. The Belt and Road Initiative, if you think about the CKU railway, for example, which will cut the traveling distance from China to Europe through Central Asia by as much as 1,000 kilometers, becoming the shortest route connecting the East and the West. Of course, there will be a cultural component to this relationship as well. We've just heard about the China-Kazakhstan visa exemption program, meaning if you're a Chinese citizen or Kazakh citizen, you can just take your passport, grab a train ticket, and visit each other's countries for tourism or to study.
Well, we certainly look forward to learning more about all of those components as the summit moves on. CGTN's Wang Guan keeping close tabs on the event for us right there in Xi'an. Appreciate your reporting. Thank you. And on Thursday night, the Chinese president held a welcoming gala and banquet in Xi'an to welcome his Central Asian counterparts and other guests attending the China Central Asia Summit. Our reporter Zhao Yunfei was at the venue and has these details.
Chinese President Xi Jinping hosted a very special welcoming event. Behind me, Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife, Professor Peng Liyuan, greeted the leaders and their wives from the 5 Central Asian nations. After the group photo, they walked towards the Ziyun pagoda behind them. If you look at the architecture is in the style from the Tang Dynasty, and that's why the welcoming ceremony is also conducted according to the customs from the ancient China. And after the welcoming ceremony, there is a big banquet. On the menu, there are pita soaked in lamb soup and roujiamo, or Chinese burger. And the taste really fits the taste of the people from Central Asian nations. And also, both of the dishes are Xi'an cuisines and specialties. Following the dinner, there is a night performance. The performance is not very long, but it's a blend of culture, and artists from China and Central Asian countries celebrate the bond between the two areas that has been carried on for thousands of years. Xi'an has a significance while hosting the China Central Asian Summit. It is considered the starting point of the Asian Silk Road. Now, when we talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, it's inspired by the Asian Silk Road. It is expected to carry on the friendship and cooperation between China and Central Asian nations into the next level. Zhao Yunfei, CGTN, Xi'an, Shaanxi Province.
The Chinese President Xi Jinping has held bilateral talks with leaders from 4 Central Asian countries in Xi'an, northwest China's Shaanxi Province. The meetings held Wednesday propose a new blueprint for ties. We get more details from CGTN's Meng Qingsheng.
President Xi Jinping has a tight and fruitful agenda on the first day of the two-day summit. He held 4 rounds of bilateral talks with the leaders of Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. After each meeting, the heads of state signed important cooperative deals to strengthen their neighborly and friendly relations. President Xi stressed the China-Central Asian relationship has traveled a 31-year journey. It enjoys deep historical roots, solid political foundations, substantive cooperation, and extensive public support. And China is ready to work with Central Asia to build a community with a shared future, featuring everlasting friendship, solidarity, and mutual benefit. Leaders of Central Asia reiterated their support for the One China principle, and they praised the China-proposed Global Development Initiative, Global Security Initiative, and Global Civilization Initiative. They expressed their willingness to enhance the depth, breadth, and scale of cooperation and expand their partnership in areas like the economy, trade, natural gas, connectivity, and cultural exchange. Central Asia also voiced their support for the Belt and Road Initiative launched back in 2013. As of the end of 2022, statistics show over 65,000 China-Europe freight trains had transported $300 billion worth of cargo, and nearly 80% of the total trips passed through Central Asia. I've spoken to business people from Central Asia who told me the freight trains offer a secure and reliable channel for trade and economic cooperation. The train service only costs 1/5 of air transportation and takes a quarter of the time required by shipping. Currently, China's civil aviation sector are working together with the Central Asian countries to develop an air Silk Road. This will bring more opportunities for cooperation in culture, business, and tourism. China has also been the largest or main trading partner of Central Asian countries for many years, and its trade volume has continuously hit record highs. In the process of combating extremist terrorist activities, China has carried out close cooperation with law enforcement agencies and judiciary institutions in Central Asia. China has become one of the main destinations and preferred countries for students in Central Asia to study abroad. The number of Central Asian students studying in China has rapidly increased after the COVID-19 pandemic. In-depth cooperation is clearly a valuable asset all sides cherish. President Xi Jinping emphasized that China will always be a trustworthy and reliable neighbor, partner, friend, and brother to Central Asian countries. Meng Qingsheng, CGTN, Xi'an, Shaanxi Province.
Just a quick update on the summit today. We know that the 5 Central Asian presidents and their Chinese counterpart are taking a group photo as we speak. In a welcome ceremony also, they will be heading for that roundtable meeting later. We will bring you more details when they become available right here on our program. Now, top officials from Central Asian countries say the China-Central Asia Summit is a significant opportunity to promote mutual development and prosperity with China. Take a listen.
Then after 10 years exactly, we have this first China to Central Asia summit. Yes, during not only last 10 years, but over the last 30 years, we established very fruitful relationships with China, both political and economic relationships. 30 years ago, our trade volume was something like $700 million only. Now it's $70 billion, so it's 100 times growth. but we have to adjust ourselves to new reality. We're really looking what's happening in China in terms of modernization and moving into development model. And we don't want only to be on the side of this process. We have to be inside this process.
Tajikistan is very much looking forward to this China Central Asia Summit. We hope to use the summit to increase transit of goods through Tajikistan. We believe that within the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative, we can achieve this goal.
The implementation of the Belt and Road Initiative in Central Asia is of great significance to the countries in the region. The concept of building a community with a shared future for mankind proposed by President Xi Jinping is a valuable initiative that is urgently needed in today's world. We welcome the creation of a China Central Asia community with a shared future in Central Asia.
And let us continue our discussions here in the studio. Professor Liu and Mr. Tang, I want to go into the specifics of the Belt and Road Initiative with those 5 Central Asian countries. What would you say has been the center of the Belt and Road projects? I mean, we're talking about infrastructure building, connectivity. We're also talking about trade. We're talking about health, people-to-people exchanges. What would you say was the center of cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative?
I think on top of the list is connectivity, and the other is energy collaboration. And it's not only there, to stay on the same level of infrastructure, because we are there to invest a lion's share, really to contribute in forming new lines of transportation, both for cargo and passengers. And we're not only there also to extract the minerals and oil and gas, but also are there to help them to elevate their technological standard in terms of training their people and building more of the processing equipment over there. And then we also help them to find the market for many of the produce. It's not only the China is there turn out to be a destination for the end consumption. So through both ways, going to West Europe or going to East Asia, and they are also there to ride on, work, and also we work together to build such sort of expansion of their marketplace. And the other, as I said, is really the training program. Because China is really there to offer its own generosity, because they really have an upper hand in terms of the economic might and also the experience for open policy. So we show them around all the industrial parks, from the high-end manufacturing to high-tech research. And then we show them that how we can really connect the agriculture with the rural and also urban development program. And now, the level of trust has been greatly increased. I can see that the number of international students from this region, they get so much eager. And now a new rising phenomenon is entrepreneurship. So even during the pandemic, I was asked to offer a number of training programs for the young startups, with this region, and they see, how e-commerce really can benefit them. How can they get connected with Alibaba, and how they can really develop some games that can gain popularity within the Chinese youngsters. And now the digital economy is also there to be more attractive. Particularly with the GPS system, and together also with the electric vehicle construction, and on the how they direct on the road, etc. So all of these are there to share with sincerity and with concrete result.
Just a quick update for our viewers watching there. We know that the Chinese president is speaking at this moment at that roundtable meeting. We will bring you the information from that meeting and from the Chinese president's speech later on in our program, so make sure you do stay with us on our special coverage here. Mr. Teng, obviously the leaders from those Central Asian countries are here to talk business, using the opportunity provided by this summit. When they talk about expanded cooperation, they first look back on what they have done in the past. How do you think they collectively look back on cooperation under the China proposed Belt and Road Initiative? What concrete benefits have they reaped?
Actually, I think all the countries concerned at this moment are thinking about how they can go ahead, and of course they can look back at the recent development, especially the recent 10 years, especially our president put forward the Road Belt Initiative, and this is a very important idea. That is to say, we should have a regional cooperation in dealing with the various challenges, including the pandemic. After 3 years pandemic, I'm sure all the countries are recovering from such a pandemic, and we can achieve more and more by the regional cooperation, not only in trade but also in financial sectors and some other sectors. We can go ahead with the new consensus. As Wang Guan just mentioned, our president will deliver a keynote speech. That is to say, new ideas, new proposals will be there. And of course, we should learn lessons from the history, especially the 31-year cooperation between China and the Central Asia countries. We can go, in a more healthy, road for the good momentum of cooperation in various areas in this region.
For those new ideas, for those new policies to work, they will have to be mutually beneficial. And when another keyword we hear a lot is synergy. I want to get your thoughts, Professor Liu, on how China can synergize its grand and ambitious vision with the development needs of those Central Asian countries. Can you give me an example maybe of one of those countries, or maybe two, on where they can synergize how they want to develop together?
Money from China is something that they really solicit in terms of the investment. So this is something that I do experience over the number of workshops and seminars for them to really aggressively to seek the Chinese investment, particularly from the private sector. And so in addition to the foreign direct investment they seek from China, they are also there to discuss with China about building more of the financial centers and build certain type of funds so that they can really draw upon on a very convenient basis. And they also really wanted to benchmark with China in terms of stock exchange, and so that they have more financial facilities to leverage for some of the mega projects in hand. The other is the technological synergy, because they can see that from the previous model of going to Yiwu to get more of the gadgets and the garments, etc. Now they do see that the Chinese petrochemical technology and over there can really increase the value of the export, not only to China but also to the rest of the world. And the agriculture, the Chinese processing power, packaging power for the milk, for the grains, and then they can see that instead of selling the raw commodities, they can really have more added value. And then for the entrepreneurs, they are very savvy and agile, and they explore their connectivity either through the internet, or they just come to every corner of Chinese market to see that what is there to benefit over there, like Chinese way of making coffee and Chinese way of offering coffee in some of the shops. And also because China is a host of many multinationals operating in China, and within China they can really experience the multilateralism, like they benchmark more of the Starbucks coffee from China into their own countries. And my students doing the chocolate display, they learn from the Chinese model from all over the world. So this is something that China is not only the source but also the window for them to get more exposed to the world in terms of technology, security, and the way of doing business.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Do bear with me here on our program. I'll be back with you. Now you're watching our special coverage of the China Central Asia Summit. We'll be right back after this. China and its 5 Central Asian neighbors, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, have a lot to talk about. Areas of cooperation and international and regional issues affecting them all. Leaders will meet this month in Xi'an, home of the Terracotta Warriors, also the starting point of the ancient Silk Road. Join us for Close Neighbors, our special coverage of the first China Central Asia Summit, only on CGTN. 2022 marked the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and 5 Central Asian countries: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Jointly, these nations have vowed to build a community with a shared future. And over the past 3 decades, these countries have also fully deepened cooperation in various fields based on the principles of mutual respect, mutual benefit, and win-win cooperation.
China is Central Asia's largest trade partner. Statistics show that in 2022, the trade volume between China and the 5 Central Asian countries reached a record high of over $70 billion, a year-on-year increase of 40%. By the end of 2022, China's direct investment stock to the 5 Central Asian countries reached nearly $15 billion. These trade relations date back to an ancient trading route, the Silk Road. The corridor first emerged more than 2,100 years ago during the Han Dynasty. China's envoy Zhang Qian twice visited Central Asia, opening the door to friendly engagement between the 2 regions and establishing a bridge between East and West. Entering the modern era, the Belt and Road Initiative brings China and Central Asia even closer together. Under this economic cooperation framework, China and Central Asia have built extensive infrastructure links with a multi-dimensional transportation network composed of road, railway, aviation, and oil and gas pipelines. The flagship China-Kazakhstan oil pipeline transported 165 million tons of crude oil to China by the end of 2022. Another key project, the China Central Asia gas pipeline, has delivered over 423 billion cubic meters of natural gas to China since it began service in 2009. It also provides nearly 10,000 job opportunities to the countries it runs through.
The natural gas we import from Central Asia can benefit nearly 500 million Chinese residents in over 20 provinces, cities, and regions. Such an amount of clean energy guarantees and propels the economic development of China as it looks to realize carbon peaking and carbon neutrality.
Joint cooperation and connectivity has also brought tangible benefits to people in these 6 countries. More transport potential is being unleashed from the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan highway and the China-Kazakhstan-Uzbekistan railway. Another vital link between China and Central Asia. The China-Europe Railway Express made over 65,000 trips with 82 routes in operation by the end of 2022. Traveling all the way through Central Asia, the trains reached over 200 cities of 24 countries in Europe. These transportation projects have greatly facilitated cross-border logistics among Central Asian countries and shortened transportation time, thus transforming countries along the route from landlocked to land-linked. The cooperation between China and Central Asia is multifaceted. During the 4th China-Central Asia Foreign Ministers meeting in April, the 6 parties agreed to tap new growth drivers in agriculture, new energy, e-commerce, green and digital economy, and high technology. Gerard Vermaak, CGTN.
Central Asian countries have a population of over 70 million and possess an abundance of resources. However, the region has been facing severe development obstacles. With a lack of funds and modern technology, the industrial system remained underdeveloped and most consumer goods were imported. China offered solutions to fundamentally improve the situation through production capacity cooperation. Sitting at different stages of industrialization, China and Central Asia countries are highly complementary. Kazakhstan has rich crude oil resources and is a major exporter of crude oil. However, nearly 90% of its asphalt needs to be imported before 2014 due to its backward refinery facilities. The situation completely changed after asphalt factories jointly invested by China and Kazakhstan companies came into operation. With a total annual output of over 400,000 tons, Kazakhstan can now secure its road construction projects without any dependence on asphalt imports. By 2021, the two sides had held 19 rounds of dialogue on production capacity cooperation and confirmed 56 key projects covering steel production, agricultural products, and more. China is also actively promoting production capacity cooperation with Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. The total investment in the key cooperation projects between China and Central Asia countries has surpassed $20 billion. Let's get some more analysis from my studio guests here. Mr. Tan mentioned just now, bilateral trade volume stood at over $70 billion in 2022, and that's over 100-fold increase since the establishment of diplomatic relations over 3 decades ago. Professor Liu, can you shed light on what makes up that huge trade volume between the two sides?
Well, despite of all the challenges, largely imposed by two factors. One is the pandemic, and the other is the Ukraine conflict of the past 1.5 years almost. The trade between China and the Central States have been really increasing very dramatically, well over 20%, on bilateral basis and a collective basis.
How come?
Also. And of course, one is connectivity, because transportation and logistics are there, are being made so cost effective, and so the geographical adjacency is being taken advantage, not because of the spatial distance. It's really the transportation distance that really matters in terms of the trade exchange. And the other is the sort of more of the understanding with the business environment about each other, and there's been far reduced hesitation for businesses, particularly in the private sector and the small businesses. They have less guesswork or less type of adventure in doing it. So more of the businesses are being normalized with the right type of standard and template contracts. And the other is the level of communication, because we can see that it used to that more of the Chinese entrepreneurs and business leaders, they go and take initiative in seeing, okay, how can we process their cotton, and how can we really process the food over there, and where are the coal mines or copper mines, etc. But right now they are actively coming here, despite of the the constraint of the pandemic, to offer their proposals, and also ask us to help them to get connected with the business community, so that this is the one that they can offer, and not only in terms of the political and legal environment, but also the type of fund the local community and local government can really help by soliciting more of the Chinese investment over there. So this is something that the other, I think, is also the disruption of the geopolitical issues. They see that China is a sure friend with not only the capacity, but also the sincerity to work with them. So without intimidation.
Stable, reliable, and willing partner China has been. Mr. Tang, let me come to you now. If you look at 2022, specifically China's imports of agricultural, energy, and mineral products from the 5 countries jumped over 50%. That's quite some increase from the previous year, while its exports of mechanical and electronic products to those countries increased by 42%. how do you account for those growth numbers?
Yes, this is a great progress made by the countries in this region, and I'm sure one background for us to understand such a development is the geopolitical situation in Asia-Pacific region or in the Eurasia continent, because some countries just initiated so-called decoupling policy, and China actually has shifted a little bit its policy. For example, investment and trade with the Central Asia countries. So this is a big background for us to understand such a big progress made by the countries between China and the Central Asia countries. And the second, I'm sure, just because of the mutual trust and mutual benefit policy between the two sides, and they would like to enhance such momentum, for example, the trade cooperation and also the cooperation in the improvement of infrastructure in some countries, for the railroad and some other road for the region. So this is a very important part of the connectivity in this region. So we can give a very promising future for such cooperation in this region, because we have a solid foundation. We have solid, basement for the enhancement.
Do you agree with Professor Liu when he said that among the many things that Central Asian countries seek from China, money, technology, experience, personnel exchange, money was a top priority, that they're seeking Chinese investment? And to what sectors does the money flow?
The money or the investment from China should be a very important part for the cooperation between China and the 5 Central Asia countries. For example, the improvement of infrastructure in these countries, and also the industrialization of these countries requires a lot of investment. So I'm sure this is a good opportunity, because we are facing, China is now facing some obstacles from the country like the United States. So we can shift our focus to Central Asia, and Central Asia, of course, requires such a investment. So this is a good opportunity for China and for Central Asia to go ahead.
I'm sorry, Professor.
I think
you were going to say.
The synergy lies in the fact that actually after they became independent, since the early 90s of last century, they have a lot of industrial legacies. And so they need upgradation. And this way it gave the Chinese an opportunity that, I do not need really to pave the road and build more cement to build on scratches. So we just are there to upgrade on the technology, on those equipments, and train the engineers to use more of the digital operation, etc. So this is really a very cost-effective way on riding on the infrastructure that is already there but outdated, and this is something that's very interesting. The other is we have to see that there are regional imbalances between these countries. Nearly 70% of the foreign direct investment from China really end up in Kazakhstan. So they are the gateways, and we even have the shared border special economic zones over there, and they also enjoy the very high per capita income, well over $10,000 US. But the rest of the other countries are really they're rather lackluster in terms of their per capita income, with the consumption power, etc. And actually, it is the common responsibility. I think definitely there's going to be a very positive outcome over there, that China is also there to help to number one, to offer Chinese experience as how we can really, balance the regional development within our own country, and the other is that through better connectivity and better cooperation, not only between China collectively with the 5 Central Asia states, but even among them. How can they really synergize with each other, so that we are really working towards the grand goal of shared community? And this is something that we would like to see, and we believe that we have good reason to have that type of positive outcome.
It's very interesting. We've been talking about those 5 countries as a whole, collectively, but their needs are different.
Yes.
Their resources are different. Professor Liu, can you shed light on, just based on their different needs, they're based on their different resources, how are their cooperation projects with China different, and what specifically does every country need here?
Yeah, like Uzbekistan, they have more of the farming, animal husbandry, and where the Kazakhstan is more eager to work with China on reindustrialization, and the other countries may have huge reserve in the copper, in gold, etc. So how can we really ride on existing comparative advantages and then go together to really upgrade on the industrial input over there, so that they can really have better value over it. And so you can see that actually through my dialogue with a number of officials and business leaders from this region, they do respect that China is really there to offer sincerity. And so we are not there simply just to put a cap on their industrial upgradation, so that they will be constant supplier of raw materials and also the destination for the Chinese manufactured ones. So China is there to go with them together. We are not really holding back on any technology and on any type of a human capacity support.
That's a great point. I wish to talk to both of you for more on that. But for now, we're going to turn back to the summit. And now let's watch the arrival of the leaders at the venue earlier this morning. This is the second day of the China Central Asia Summit being held in Xi'an in northwest China. Leaders from 5 Central Asian countries are gathering for that all-important meeting with their Chinese host, their Chinese counterpart, President Xi Jinping. They will be participating in a round-table meeting where the Chinese president will be making a speech. And these pictures we put up for you show the arrival of the leaders from those 5 Central Asian countries: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. They, of course, in Xi'an to participate in the China Central Asia Summit. And prior to their meeting today, they have held bilateral meetings with the Chinese president. Now, as you can see, a red carpet rolled out for the arrival of the leaders. First arriving at the scene, Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. Of course, yesterday it was a lot of pomp and pageantry as the leaders took part in a grand welcome ceremony. They watched some performances together. Xi'an, as the capital of 13 Chinese dynasties, had a lot to offer culturally. So the performances were very grand, as a big welcome ceremony was held in honor of the visiting presidents from Central Asia. And President Tokayev has arrived at the scene. He said that he personally has high expectations for the summit. He believes that China is playing an increasingly important role in Central Asia and believes that leaders of other Central Asian countries have similar views. Now arriving at the scene is Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. Of course, the leaders are arriving one by one, getting ready for their meeting with the Chinese president. We will bring you more details there. Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev is 66 years old and was born in Jizak region. On Thursday, he held talks with the Chinese president. Chinese President Xi Jinping expressed confidence that reform and opening up in Uzbekistan will enjoy broader prospects and the development of new Uzbekistan will yield greater outcomes. President Xi said China is ready to work with Uzbekistan to deepen cooperation across the board and to build a China-Uzbekistan community with a shared future. Now, two presidents have arrived at this scene. We're looking to see the third leader, and this is Tajik President Emomali Rahmon. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the establishment of a strategic partnership between China and Tajikistan. The two sides are committed to deeply integrating the Belt and Road Initiative with Tajikistan's national development strategy, with a further aim to strengthen political, economic, trade, military, and technological cooperation. There have been frequent high-level exchanges over the past few years. The two heads of state met each last September, where both spoke highly of the sustained development of bilateral ties in recent decades. Also arriving at the scene is Kyrgyz President Sadir Japarov. Also on Thursday, Chinese President Xi Jinping held talks with President Sadir Japarov. She said China is ready to work with Kyrgyzstan to build a community with a shared future of good neighborliness and shared prosperity and carry out cooperation in all dimensions. She called for advancing pragmatic cooperation in various fields with joint high-quality development of the Belt and Road Initiative. He said China is willing to increase the import of quality agricultural products from Kyrgyzstan and encourage more Chinese companies to invest and do business in the country. Now arriving at the venue is Turkmen President Sedar Berdimuhamedov, the last president from Central Asian countries to arrive at the meeting today, the second day of the China Central Asia Summit. He also met with President Xi on Thursday, where the Chinese president noted their countries have carried out a friendly cooperation based on the principles of mutual respect and mutual benefit, adding that the bilateral relationship enjoys enormous potential and broad prospects. A bird's eye view of the venue where the summit will be held on the second day of the China Central Asia Summit. Gentlemen, when you hear that the president will primarily give a policy speech this morning on the second day of the summit, what do you envision will be included in the content of that speech, Mr. Teng?
Actually, we have got a lot of achievements in the Road and Belt Initiative, but this time I'm sure our president will give new ideas, new proposals to enhance the momentum of cooperation for the sake not only China, but also for the sake of all the region, in the future. So I think our president will talk about the economic cooperation, the trade cooperation, the cooperation in the improvement of infrastructure, and also in financial sector. Will give some new ideas so we can enjoy such momentum, because this is a very good proposal for from China and for the sake of the whole region.
All right, let's find out together if that is included in the Chinese president's speech. We now have pictures of the Chinese president speaking. Let's watch together. Again, this is the venue where the China Central Asia Summit is being held. Again, the Chinese president is welcoming the 5 presidents from Central Asia arriving at the venue for the meeting today, the second day of the China Central Asia Summit. If yesterday's events were more about the pomp and pageantry, about the welcoming ceremony, about artistic performances, today the leaders really do sit down to talk about business, how China and those 5 Central Asian neighbors can synergize their development, how do they expand cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative, and how do they build a community with a shared future. Now the leaders are taking a group photo before they head into that round table meeting. All right, we will bring you more pictures of the Chinese president speaking in just a moment. But for now, Professor Liu, what do you expect to hear from the president's speech?
I think first he will start with a shared vision. Right now, peace, again, is on the top agenda as a precious gift for the good neighborhood relationship. And then in front of the complexities of geopolitical situation, and by really working together towards, building peace and consolidating peace, address the terrorism, address the, the unsupported type of the expansionist over territory is something that needs to be alert. And the other is that when people are there to get more awakened to better life and to ease of life, and also to expanding their business outreach, so leaders are there to support. And then the other, of course, we are here to propose, after those grand notion of shared prosperity, what are those concrete items we can really table on it? It's not there China is dictating all the agenda, but rather, what is really, something that they can really offer on it, so that we can really work on a mutual benefit and also mutual trust basis. And then, we will definitely show our attitude there towards our own way of understanding, and in terms of the peacekeeping issues over the Ukraine conflict, because this is something that is unavoidable. But rather, the China is also there to respect, each other's choice. So we are not there to say, okay, this is the way to go. And definitely, we are going to show that we are the one of the strong forces for peacemaking, and we have successfully, dealt with some of the peace brokerage, and now some of the proposals in the political settlement can also be shared over, among more of the leaders from these governments.
All right, thank you both very much. We appreciate it. Chinese President Xi Jinping has delivered an important speech at the China Central Asia Summit. Let's take a listen.
尊敬的各位同事
colleagues,
各位朋友
friends,
很高兴在这美好时节
I'm very happy
同大家齐聚西安
to join you here in Xi'an, in this beautiful city, to renew our friendship and discuss our development together. On behalf of the Chinese government and its people, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our friends.
当今世界百年未有之大变
The
局
world
加速演进
is undergoing these changes unseen in a century.
正在发生
International
深刻复
and
杂
the
变化
regional landscape also facing
挑战都
a
前所未
complicated
有
changes. we have facing a unprecedented challenges at this critical moment of history. The China Central Asia Summit this came on time to respond to people's aspiration, which will for sure to produce a profound and important importance to our development. At the same time, our summit will also have a great significance to the international landscape. We also would like to take this opportunity to summarize the historical lessons and learnings and to draw the blueprint and also to synergy our creativity and to bring them into our action plan. So that will help us to move for a stable and sustained development of China's relations with the 5 Central Asian countries. So according to the agenda, I will first give a keynote speech on behalf of China. Colleagues,
女士们、先生们、朋友们
ladies and gentlemen, friends,
欢迎大家来西安
welcome to Xi'an
出席中国中亚峰
to
会
attend
共商
China Central
中国同
Asia
中亚
Summit
5国合作
for
大
discussing plans for development.
西安古称长安
Xi'an also has an ancient name as Chang'an,
中华文明的
which is
重要发祥
one
地
of
之
the
一
key important birthplace
也是古
of
丝绸
Chinese
之路的
civilization and the Chinese
东方
nation,
起点
also a oriental starting point of ancient Silk
2100
Road.
多年前
More than
中国
2,100
汉
years
代使
ago,
者张骞
Zhang Qian of
自
China's
长
Han
安出发
dynasty
出使西
started his journey from
打
here,
开了中国
Chang'an,
同中亚
to
友好交往的大门
the west, opening the door of friendly
千百年
exchanges
来
between
中国同
China
中亚
and the
各
Central
族
Asian
人民
countries. Over the thousands of years, China
推动
with
了
people
丝绸
from
之路
ancient
的兴起
Central
和
Asia
繁荣
countries who strive
为世界
for
文明交流
the thriving
交
and
融
prosperity of the
丰
Silk
富发
Road,
展做出了历史性
making
贡献
historic contribution to the world
中国
civilization
唐代诗
communication
人李白
and rich
曾
development.
有过长安
Chinese
复
poem
携手
of Tang
再
Dynasty
赴
had
重千金的诗句
once said that our
今
meetings
天我
in
们在
Chang'an
西安
again
相聚
worth
续
more
写
than
千
the
年
value of gold.
友情
Today we gather here to carry
开辟
forward our 1,000 years
未来
of friendship,
具有
opening
十分
up
重要的
our
意义
bright future. Our meeting has
2013
significant
年
meanings.
我担任中国国家主席后首次出访中亚
After I elected as
提出
Chinese president in
共建
2013,
丝绸之
I
路经
made
济
my
带
first visit to
倡议
Central Asia and
10
proposed
年来
initiative of
中
jointly
国同
building
中亚国家携
the
手推
Silk
动
Road
丝绸
economic
之路
belt.
全面
Over the
复
past
兴
one decade,
倾力
we
打造
worked
面
together
向未来的
to strive for
深度
a
合作
fully revitalization of the
将
ancient Silk
双方
Road
关系
and
带入
also
一个
making our
崭
in-depth
新时代
communication and cooperation bring our collaboration and relations into
横
a
跨
new
天山
era.
的中基乌公路
China, Kyrgyzstan,
征服
Uzbekistan
帕米尔高
expressway
原的中塔公
passing
路
Mount Tianshan,
穿越茫茫
the
大
China
漠的
Tajikistan
中
highway
哈
passing
原油管道
Pamirs, and
中
also
国中
China
亚
Kazakhstan
天
crude
然气
oil
管道
pipeline crossing the vast
就是
desert,
当代
as
的
well as China Central Asia natural gas
日夜兼
pipelines
程的
are the Silk
中
Road
欧班列
of our time.
不绝于途的
The China-Europe
货运
Freight
汽车
Express
往来不歇
operating day
的
and nights,
空
as
中
well
航
as
班
freight vehicles, airplanes, all can be considered as the camel teams in our modern times. Entrepreneurs seeking for opportunities for businesses, our medical staffs fighting against COVID-19, as well as cultural workers convening the voice of friendship, as well as overseas students looking for knowledge of each other's civilization, are all could be considered as the friendship envoys of our time. China and the Central Asia countries enjoyed a profound historical orientation with vast needs of our time and also a solid foundation of people's willingness. All these will help our relationship to embrace the vitality. Dear colleagues, the century-old changes are accelerating. Changes in the world, times, and history are unfolding in an unprecedented way. Central Asia is the center of Central Europe at the crossroads that connects East and West and runs North and South. The world needs a stable Central Asia. Central Asia countries' sovereignty, security, independence, and territorial integrity must be guaranteed and safeguarded. The development path independently chosen by the Central Asian people must be respected. And the effort for peace, harmony, and the tranquility in the Central Asian region must be supported. The world needs a prosperous Central Asia. A dynamic and thriving Central Asia will meet people's aspiration for a better life, as well as injecting strong impetus into the world economic recovery and development. The world needs a harmonious Central Asia. Our brotherhood and friendship surpass any assets. The conflicts of the nations and the wars between the religions or the distance between the civilizations are not the major tone of Central Asia. On the other hand, the Central Asian people's common pursuit is solidarity, inclusiveness, and amity. No one has the right to foment any unwelcomed voices or seeking the personal interests. The world needs a Central Asia with strong connectivity. Central Asia enjoys a strength and also a unique strength in the geology. Therefore, it has the condition, the foundation, as well as the capability to become the interconnectivity hub for the Central Europe continent, as well as to making its due contribution to the goods change and the civilization, communication, as well as technology development. Colleagues, last year, we had a virtual summit to commemorate the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and the Central Asian countries, and we proposed to build a China-Central Asia community with a shared future. This is under the background of the new era with the eye on people's fundamental interests as well as bright future. This is also the choice with the history. Therefore, we need to follow the 4 points.
First, we need to help each other. We need to deepen strategic mutual trust and give each other clear and strong support on issues concerning our core interests such as sovereignty, independence, natural dignity, and long-term development, and work together to build a community of mutual assistance, solidarity, and trust. Second, we need to pursue common development. We should continue to take the lead in BRI cooperation, promote the implementation of the global development agenda, and fully unleash the potential of traditional cooperation in economy, trade, industrial capacity, energy, and transport, and foster new growth areas in finance, agriculture, poverty reduction, green and low-carbon development, healthcare, and digital innovation, so as to build a community of win-win cooperation and mutual achievement. Third, we need to uphold universal security principle. We need to jointly implement the global security initiative, firmly oppose external interference in the internal affairs of regional countries, and instill color revolution. We need to maintain zero tolerance for the three forces and work hard to resolve regional security issues and jointly build a community that is free from conflict and at peace. 4. We need to uphold the everlasting friendship of the region. We need to follow the initiative Global Civilizations and continue our friendship, increase people-to-people exchange, enhance experience sharing in governance, and deepen mutual learning among civilizations, enhance mutual understanding, and cement the cornerstone of lasting friendship between the Chinese and Central Asian peoples, and work together to build a community of mutual understanding. Dear colleagues, this summit has set up a new platform for cooperation between China and Central Asia and open up new prospects for future cooperation. China will take this summit as a golden opportunity to work closely with all parties to plan, build, and develop China-Central Asian cooperation. First, we need to strengthen institutional building mechanism. We have already set up diplomatic, economic, trade, and custom meeting mechanisms, as well as business councils. China also proposed the establishment of meeting and dialogue mechanism in industry and investment, agriculture, transportation, emergency management, education, and political parties, in order to build a broad platform for all countries to carry out all-round and mutually beneficial cooperation. Second, expand economic and trade relations. China will introduce more trade facilitation measures, upgrade the bilateral investment treaty, achieve full coverage of the Green Channel for rapid customer clearance of agricultural products at our ports, and hold events themed gathering Asian goods together to build community trade center and boost trade development to a new level. Third, deepen connectivity. China will comprehensively increase the volume of cross-border transport, support the construction of Trans-Caspian International Transport Corridor, increase the traffic capacity of roads with Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan and with Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, and advance consultation on the alignment of railway projects with Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. We will also speed up the modernization of existing ports, expand the Badel Pass capacity, open up air transport markets, and develop a regional logistic network. We will strengthen the development of assembly center for China-Europe freight trains, encourage competitive enterprises to set up overseas warehouses in Central Asia countries, and build comprehensive digital service platforms. Fourth, expand energy cooperation. China proposes to establish a China-Central Asia Energy Development Partnership and accelerate the construction of Line D of the China-Central Asia natural gas pipeline, expand bilateral oil and gas trade, develop cooperation across the energy industrial chain, and strengthen cooperation on new energy and peaceful use of nuclear energy. Fourth, promote green innovation. China is ready to cooperate with Central Asia countries in the improvement of saline alkali land and water-saving irrigation, build a jointly laboratory for regional agriculture, and help resolve the ecological crisis in the ROC, and support the establishment of high-tech enterprises and information tech parks in Central Asia. China welcomes Central Asian countries to participate in the BRI special cooperation programs on sustainable development technologies, innovation, and entrepreneurship, as well as space information technology. 6. We need to enhance development capacity. China will formulate a special cooperation plan on science, technology, and poverty reduction with Central Asia countries, implement the China-Central Asia Technology and Skill Upgrading Plan, and set up more Luban workshops in Central Asia countries, and encourage Chinese-founded businesses in Central Asia to provide more jobs for the local people, and boost China's cooperation with Central Asia countries in order to boost the local development. China will provide a total of 26 billion yuan in financial support and grant assistance to Central Asian countries. 7th, we need to strengthen dialogues among civilizations. China invites Central Asia countries to participate in the Silk Road Cultural Initiative. We will set up more traditional medical centers in Central Asia, accelerate the establishment of cultural centers, and continue to provide government scholarships to Central Asia countries. Support higher education institutions from Central Asia countries to join the Silk Road University Alliance. Host a year of culture and art between China and Central Asia countries, and the China-Central Asia Media High-Level Dialogue and Exchange activities. And promote the launch of the China-Central Asia Cultural Silk Road Initiative and the tourist city selection. We will also develop this tourism train between China and Central Asia. 8th, we need to build and uphold regional peace. China stands ready to help Central Asia countries to strengthen their capacity building in law enforcement, security, and defense, support their independent effort to safeguard regional safety and fight against terrorism. We need to carry out cybersecurity cooperation. We will continue to leverage the role of coordination mechanism between Afghanistan's neighbors and work together to promote peace and reconstruction in Afghanistan. Dear colleagues, last October, the 20th National Congress of the CPC was successfully held. It identified a central task of building China into a great modern socialist country in all respects, realizing the second centenary goal, and comprehensively promote the national rejuvenation through modernization, and drew up a grand blueprint for China's future development. We stand ready to step up efforts with the Central Asian countries on modernizations and practices to form synergy and create more opportunities for cooperation and jointly advance the modernization progress of our 6 countries. Dear colleagues, there's a proverb in Shaanxi province of China. It goes, as long as you work hard, you can dig out gold out of the soil. In Central Asia, there's a similar proverb saying that you will reap what you sow. Let us work together to promote the common development, common prosperity, and enhancement, and jointly embrace an even better future for the 6 countries. Thank you very much.
A major speech by the Chinese president on the second and final day of the China Central Asia Summit in northwest China's Xi'an. Chinese President Xi Jinping holding a roundtable meeting with the leaders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. The Chinese president has delivered a key speech to stress closer ties and deeper cooperation with the countries. The leaders of the 5 Central Asian countries were welcomed by the Chinese president at the venue before a group photo was taken to mark this event. Earlier, President Xi held bilateral meetings with all leaders on the sidelines, in which statements and documents on cooperation were signed. And for more on the summit, let's check in with CGTN reporter Zhao Yunfei live at the Media Center. Yunfei, what more can you tell us about what was covered at the summit today?
Well, Zhongshi, the highly anticipated multilateral event of the China Central Asia Summit is currently underway. President Xi Jinping is hosting the event, and he just delivered a keynote speech. And President Xi said that the world landscape is really rapidly changing. So the summit taking place over here in Xi'an right now really promote cooperation, and it really fulfills the trend of the times. President Xi said that he wants to take advantage of this summit and carry on the friendship between China and Central Asian countries. Now, in the keynote speech, President Xi said that the world needs a prosperous and harmonious Central Asia, and nobody should bring chaos to the region for the sake of personal political gain. And he mentioned about the global development initiative, global security initiative, and global civilization initiative. And all of those 3 initiatives really deepen the strategic trust between China and Central Asian countries, as well as protect the core interests for each country. In his keynote speech, President Xi mentioned a lot about the cultural background, and also that gives the significance of the reason why the summit was held in Xi'an. He mentioned about Zhang Qian, a Chinese envoy who traveled to the West more than 2,000 years ago. And Xi'an is considered the starting point or the eastern edge of the Asian Silk Road. Now, the current Belt and Road Initiative is inspired by the Asian Silk Road, which is believed to carry on the relationship and friendship and cooperation between China and Central Asian countries. President Xi vowed to expand all fields of cooperation in his keynote speech, including boosting mechanism construction and economic relationship, connectivity, energy, innovation, and ecological protection. And President Xi said that he's willing to exchange more ways of cooperation with the leaders of Central Asian leaders. For example, he mentioned about the 20th CPC National Congress, which is convened last October, where China has embarked on a new journey towards building a modern socialist country in all respects. China has hopped on the journey of the Chinese modernization. President Xi said he's willing to exchange theoretical and practical idea of the modernization so that China and Central Asia can pursue its own path of the modernization. Zhongshi, back to you.
CGTN's Zhao Yunfei monitoring what was said by the Chinese president for us at the Summit Media Center. Yunfei, appreciate your reporting. Thank you. I want to get you more analysis from my studio guests here who've watched that speech with all of us. I find it rather concise, a 20-minute speech that, of course, pays tribute to the traditional friendship between China and those Central Asian countries, but also lays out an 8-point proposal, rather, on expanding ties and cooperation. If we have time, I do want to go into some of the specifics here, but can I just get, first of all, Professor Liu, your take, your general impression of that speech by the Chinese president?
I think it's very clear-cut. And first, we start to describe, okay, what type of the world are we living in now? And then more focus is that what type of world we really want to live in. And then what can we do together to achieve the ideal world that we want to be over there. So I think very clear cut, and followed by the 8 specific proposals that we can really work together. So one thing I feel, in addition to the conventional type of cooperation, which is very outstanding, is really to strengthen the dialogue and the communication mechanism, because it is not only there to pop up new ideas, but how to implement it. And during the entire implementation process, where is the mechanism to coordinate the technical issues and those, even frictions over a number of issues like how to shift the cargo from the wide rail into a narrow rail. So things like that, and how do we address the quarantine issues over the cross-border cargo transportation, and how do we deal with individual officials who really feel felt harassing some of the business licenses, etc. So this is something that is very important to ensure that we move on the right track, and we quickly solve the problem to further enhance the trust level, so that business communities and people on all type of corporate exchanges can really see that without much of the risk type of consideration, they can go ahead with the low-cost operation over their own business and also personal agenda.
Mr. Teng, the Chinese president called this summit a new platform, discussing new prospects for China in the Central Asian region. What stood out as new in the president's speech?
First, I should say we are facing a very completely new world with the changes that we have never seen in 100 years. So this is the background for us to understand the proposal given by our president just now, at least 8 points, all the proposals given by the president during his keynote speech. For example, the mechanism construction. This is very important because we should have a very solid platform to exchange ideas, to have some policy integration, and also to have some discussion if there is a dispute among the countries in this region. So I think number one job is to have a platform, that is to say, to have a mechanism to talk about the future cooperation and to find some ways to deal with the challenges we are facing now. And also China would like to give more and more investment, for example, including the fund, $26 billion fund for the investment in Asia Pacific region. That's a good idea because, as we discussed now, the Central Asia countries are now requiring a very large amount of investment for the industrialization of these countries and for the improvement of the infrastructure. So I think some ideas are soft part, some are hard part, because this is only not a policy in a proposal, but also very concrete ideas for the countries concerned in this region to go ahead to have more and more in-depth cooperation.
I think one outstanding issue, we are over this entire speech, we are not targeting to any other third party. We're not pointing fingers, to United States or Russia or whatsoever. It's how we can really work together, because these are really the factors within our control, and we can really work towards improvement and betterment of the peoples of all the nations together. So instead of getting this whole discussion with the overcast of many ideological and political issues, I think this is really a stark contrast with some other meetings that is there to overlap with this one.
It's very interesting, Professor Liu, because you mentioned you have a class later today. You're going to be teaching. You'll be lecturing on China's green economic transformation. When you hear from the Chinese president that green innovation is one of the 8 points mentioned by the Chinese president, is something that China and those 5 Central Asian countries can work on. China itself is in a green transformation process. How can both sides work together to facilitate, to promote green innovation? I mean, for Central Asia, obviously big agricultural states, they will need technology on developing agriculture. How can China be helpful?
Look at the sandstorm we experienced. Some say from Siberia, some say from Mongolia a month ago. So this is the common responsibility of all nations, particularly among neighbors, so that we can coordinate in terms of dealing with the climate change, and now very physically and practically grow more trees and block those the sand, and share the technology as how we can really have the good animal husbandry, so that we are not really going further to expand the desert. And then, how we can really work together in the digital technology, where we can really monitor the weather. We can really, be able to predict what is going to happen in terms of the natural disaster, etc., so that we can inform those people who are the key stakeholders within that. And the other issue is that how we can really have a shared mechanism, so that we can exchange information without much of the distrust, and then we can really together, with the type of working mechanism over different sectors, like technology, like information, like trade, and like finance, etc. So this is something that we can really strengthen, and also something that is very specific, that we need to work out a shared standard as for the custom procedures, as for the visa issues. Now, we do expect we are going to have more of the visa exemption among these countries, and going further, how we can really build the connectivity of the different road tracks, because I used to teach transportation at the course. I know that we have different widths of the road track, and that can really be cumbersome in the transportation, in the time and the cost. So if we can really do that together with building more of the rail tracks on a standardized basis, we can really have a lot more potential to really unleash
unified standards here. Gentlemen, we haven't got a chance to really talk about security. I mean, Central Asian countries have participated on safeguarding regional security with China through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Mr. Teng, based on what was covered today, do you see anything innovative about how both sides can work together to safeguard regional security.
Yeah, security cooperation is one proposal given by our president during his keynote speech. I'm sure it's actually a coin with two sides. On one side is the security for the region, and on the other side is development. Actually, they cannot be separated at this moment. Only we have a stable and peaceful environment. We can go, to have some investment, to have some improvement of infrastructure, and only after these efforts made by the countries in this region, we can have more and more development, have a very prosperous future. And actually, from the very beginning, I'm sure the cooperation between China and the Central Asia countries just started from the peace and security cooperation. For example, the fighting against the three evil forces at that time. And to my understanding, to my knowledge, that PRA just initiated its first military drills with Kyrgyzstan. And in 2003, that should be the first military drill between the two countries, or our PRA went abroad to have such joint militaries with foreign countries. So this is a very important part for China and the Central Asian countries to go ahead in the security cooperation to fight against any evil forces in this region, and to maintain a peace and peaceful and stable condition for the development of the countries.
We don't have a lot of time left. Your final remarks, Professor?
Yeah, I think there has to be a solid pledge that no one individual country should be there to be a troublemaker, because we do not really have any border issues, etc., even though we share a very long borderline. And then we together can be peace weaver. So, we are there to set example, to stabilize the Eurasia, and that can really benefit the entire world, because the world has already enough trouble to deal with. So, therefore, I think this summit is really a milestone that, where is the consensus and where is the operationalized structure? And we are really showing to the world there are ways that we can work out confrontation. There are ways that we can dissolve some of the mistrust and contribute to a betterment of the whole world.
Professor Liu, Mr. Teng, a pleasure to have both of you on our special coverage today. Thank you so much. And that wraps up our broadcast for now. Our continuous coverage on the China Central Asia Summit continues on CGTN. Make sure you stay with us right here.